Hello everyone. In the last class, we have covered the introductory part of industrial relations, an overview in which we have covered the concept, meaning, definition, scope, importance, and the objectives of industrial relations. Today, we are going to learn about the theories and approaches of industrial relations. So, we know that in the scenario of industrial relations and the factors affecting it has been, industrial relations has been perceived differently by different practitioners and theorists. And they say that, they opine that these industrial issues or the problems are raised out of class conflict and mutuality of interest of different groups and due to consequences of interactions. So they opine that these industrial conflicts are due to this class conflict, the first factor, and due to the mutuality of interest and the consequence of interaction. These are the three most factors out of which the industrial problems arises. This is the view of various theories. And coming to the approaches of industrial relations, based upon the different orientations, several approaches have been developed to explain the dynamics of industrial relations. Some of the approaches which we come up today is systems approach, which is developed by Dunlop. In the last class, we have gone through this also. And unitary approach, which is very important, and a pluralist approach, this is also important one, and Marxist approach. These are three most important approaches of industrial relations, and other approaches are sociological approaches and Gandhian approach or trusteeship approach and psychological approach, human relations approach. These are the various approaches of industrial relations. Now, we are coming to the first approach, that is systems approach. This was developed in the year of 1958 by Dunlop, and he applied the systems approach to industrial relations. And according to Dunlop, a system comprises of various subsystems. Okay, and this system can be either influenced by the environment in case of open system, whereas in case of closed system, it can be insulated from the environment. Insulated means nothing but protected, either protected or influenced by the environment. A system can be either protected in case of closed system or influenced by the environment in case of open system. It is the viewpoint of the Dunlop. Whereas he considered the total industrial relations as a part of society. He considered the industrial relations as a part of society. And he defined industrial relations comprises of various elements. The most important elements are actors. The first element is actors and context and ideologies. The fourth element is rules. And he believed that every human being belongs to continuous but independent social system, culture, which is responsible for framing his or her own actions. And each element, what are the elements which we have discussed, actors, context, and ideologies, they are independent, but they depend on each other for performing an act. And coming to the first element is actors. These actors in an industry is workers, managers, management, and we can say the government agencies. And these are all independent act. They can act independently, but they will be depending on one another for the mutual benefit. So they can act independently, but they'll be depending upon one another for what? For the mutual benefit. So next is context. Context is nothing but in which the situations, the environment constraints in which they'll be working, they'll be acting. So technological constraints, market constraints, distribution of power among the actors, and the actors interact with a general environment comprising of all these constraints. So, and the next is ideologies. Ideologies are nothing but common shared beliefs and ideas regarding the engagement and the roles of actors that binds them together, that integrates them together towards a goal. The common ideology of this approach is healthy industrial relations for the benefit of all the actors. And the next is rules. Rules are the focus of the industrial relations, and these rules comprises of in the industry. The rules comprises of working conditions, employment and service conditions of the employees, procedures and process of implementation of service rules in the context of employment. So rules will be framed by the government, and these rules is framed by the rule making. It can be crucial, and it is one of the most important thing in the system, industrial system, on which all these actors will be acting. And this Dunlop approach it has been expressed algebraically by Blaines and Jenner in 1970 as rules is equal to, it is a function of A, actors, T is the technological constraints, E is the market constraints, S is the power distribution among these actors, and I is nothing but ideology. These are the constraints. A is actor, T is technological constraints, E is the market constraint, S is the power distribution among the actors, and I is the ideologies. And this is all about the Dunlop system approach. Coming to the diagrammatic representation, which is showing the input, processing, and output in a, as it has been taken, industrial relations has taken as a system in which it consists of various subsystems like input, processing, and output. Coming to the next approach, we'll be going to the next approach called as unitary approach. The unitary approach, the most important approach of industrial relations, in which the name itself says that the basic principle of unitary approach is unity. The unitary approach is built upon the principle of unity, in which it is believed that the employer and employees work as a harmonious unit and they work towards a common goal as a team. So here it is what is in the employer and the employee will be working unitedly towards a common goal as a team to attain the goals and objectives of the organization. Both will be having a common goals. And according to Edwards 2003, any conflict that occurs is seen as a result of misunderstanding and mischief. And he says that according to unitary approach, the conflict is unnecessary. It is believed that conflict is unnecessary. And if a conflict occurs, it is just because of misunderstanding of mischief. Thus, it is said to be a disruptive concept. It is said to be a disruptive concept. Okay, and coming to the next is the concept of loyalty prevailed in the unitary approach because of its paternalistic rules. What do you mean by this paternalistic rules? Paternalistic rules are nothing but restrictions that are laid on subordinates or the dependents for doing anything. Okay, so they will be having some restrictions. They can't do their things. It's supposed to be done on their own interest. They have to work according to the rules and regulations that has been laid by the employer. That means it is clear that the power will be wasted on only one hand, that is management. The power will be only wasted in the hands of the management, and these people and the employees have to work with loyalty and sincerity to the organization. They have to act loyally and sincerely to the organization. So since there exists direct relation between employer and employee, the trade unions are considered as unnecessary because they say that there is no scope for conflict, because there is a direct relation between employer and employee and they will be working unitedly towards a common goal. So there is no scope for this conflict. If the conflict comes, okay, it is perceived as a disruptive and it is not permanent. The conflict termed as conflicts are non-permanent malformations. They are termed as conflicts are non-permanent malformations, because malformations are nothing but that are occurred due to misunderstandings or mischiefs in the management. And see, since there exists direct relation between employer and employee, the trade unions consider themselves as unnecessary. The trade unions are considered in this approach as unnecessary, and the orientation application of rules may be managerial, but employees are expected to be sincere to the organization. So it is clear that there is only one source of authority, that is the management, which owns and controls the dynamics of decision making in the issues. The total power will be in the hands of management. And this theory is also criticized as a manipulative and exploitative theory, because it is exploiting the workmen, the services of the workmen, by imposing long working hours, low wages, slavery. These are all the things happened at the time of in this unitary approach, at the time of pre-independence. Okay, as a tool of, it is regarded as a tool of seducing employees away from the unionism, because it is regarded trade unions are unnecessary and socialism. Let us see the objectives of this approach. And the simple objectives, till now we understood the objectives is, it is the objectives of its approach is, the first objective is to create productive, effective, harmonious work environment. The first objective is to create productive, effective, harmonious work environment. And the second objective, to develop trustworthy, open, fair, and transparent work culture, and to restrict the role of tribunals and other government associations like trade unions, and intimate direct negotiation between the management and the workers, etc. I have told etc. Like in that you can write like intimate interactions, direct interactions between the employer and employees are also restricted. So these are the objectives of first approach, unitary approach. And coming to the next most important approach is pluralist approach. According to the pluralist approach, this approach is developed in the United States of America by John R. Commons. He is the person who has given this approach, and this approach assumes that organization is composed of individuals, various individuals having different distinct groups, individuals who form distinct groups. These individuals will be forming into different groups, and they form groupism will be existing in that scenario, in that context again. So because of the distinct groups with their own set of aims, objectives, leadership styles, and values and philosophies, because of this distinct groupism, which leads to the conflict. So it says that this purely separate theory says that the conflict is inevitable, because there exist differences in the individuals, and they form in different groups, having their own set of aims, objectives, and leadership styles, values, etc. So there exist, when the individuals of different values and groups are existing, definitely there exists a conflict because of the difference in their opinions. Okay, so he considers society as a complex due to the presence of multiple interest groups with their own goals. What he said? He said that society as a complex system. Society is a complex system. Why? Because of the presence of multiple interest groups, which have their own goals, and hence the conflict is said to be inevitable. That means it assumes that organization is composed of individuals who are forming distinct groups, having their own set of aims, objectives, leadership styles, and values and philosophies. Okay, and it is opined that collective bargaining as a best method, is the best mechanism to sort out the conflict between the employer and the employees. The presence of trade union in this pluralist approach is quite opposite to the unitary approach, in that they said that conflict is unnecessary. Here, these people, they purely say that conflict is inevitable, and they say that collective bargaining cannot be, doesn't work out in the organization. It is not required because every decision will be taken up by the management in the unitary approach. Here, the collective bargaining is the best sort of resolving the issues. Here, these people purely say that trade unionism in an organization can serve the interest of group to protect the interest of the employee. They serve as a interest group. The trade union serves as a interest group that protects the interest of the employees, that protects the interest of the employees. So as management authority cannot accept to the demands of the employees, so people join trade unions to protect themselves because individual cannot, they cannot struggle with the authorities or management. In such scenarios, it is better to join the trade union, which a group can give more strength, whereas an individual cannot. So people started joining to the trade unions because these trade unions acts as a acts as an interest group that can protect the interest of the employees. So let us go to the objectives of this approach. The objectives of the approach is trade union is recognized as the most important. It has to be recognized and is the most important thing. And the trade union as legitimate representative of employees and they must be recognized. And stability of industrial relations is the product of compromises between employers and management through the process of collective bargaining. Next is the radical approach. This is also third important approach. This radical approach is also called as Marxist approach. This is the most radical approach, is most famous approach, which is given by Karl Marx and the people like Lenin. They'll be believing that this the basic principle of this Marxist approach is it is built on the assumption of power conflict between the two classes. One is the strongest class, that is the capital class, and the second one is labor class. They say that in the radical approach, the conflict is due to the distribution of power between this capital and the labor, because the capital are exploiting the services of the labor. They're exploiting the labor, rights of the labor. So this results in normative structures and in institutionalized norms of industrial labor. So like purelists, the Marxists, so the Marxists argued that conflict between the employer and employees are inevitable. These people are also saying that the conflict is inevitable. They're also like the purelists. They are also saying this conflict is inevitable. What is the difference between? In the purelist approach, we can say that they believe that conflict is inevitable in all the organization, while the Marxists believe that it is a product of capitalist society. It exists only in the capitalist society, with authority vested is in the hands of the capitalist parties, where the exploitation of workers takes place. In there, the conflict will be existing. The social conflict is necessary for a social change. The social conflict is necessary for a social change. That means to Marx, according to this Marx approach, the purelist approach is supported to the capitalism. In one way, they are supporting to the capitalism. Why? Because they will be saying that the power will be, so they have to listen to the authorities. They have to listen to the authorities, and they have to listen to the authorities because the decision making will be taken by these authorities through collective bargaining process. So, and they always they I can say that they resist to this unitary approach, and these people Marxist approach, where Marxist the Marxists generally unitary approach. For Marxists, the unitary approach is anathema. That is nothing but they dislike or oppose this approach of unitary approach. And for this, for the trade unions, for these Marxists, the trade unions are seen as a labor reaction to the exploitation by the capital. So they feel that this, for example, the trade unions in the capital, according to capitalist approach, the trade unions are seen as a labor reaction to the exploitation by the labor, as well as it is a weapon to bring about a revolutionary change or a revolutionary social change in the lives of the workers. Okay, so trade union is necessary because they should act as a labor reaction. They should act as a labor reaction. So coming to the next point, it argues that state does not play a neutral role but helps in consolidation of power of employer on their representatives. So what it is saying that state will not they do not act as a balance between the capital and labor, but they support the powers of the employer. Okay, so there is no need of interference of the state. And for instance, how this type of how this radical approach can be explained. For instance, if you take a problem of fair wages, the employer feel like they tries to pay as low wages as possible so as to increase their profit. In the similar way, the employee tries to obtain wages as high as possible for his sustenance. Okay, hence the formation of collective organization commonly involve a conflict between this repression by the state and brutal resistance by the employers. Okay, so let us talk about some of the ideologies of this Marxist approach. The Marxist approach stresses that unions should not fight with the effects, but with the cause of effects, and articulate unions as the collective of workers for the emancipation of working class. What is it? Emancipation of working class. Emancipation of working class is nothing but freedom from this slavery. They have to work towards the effects of the causes. They should work towards the freedom of the slavery of the labor or the workmen. They should not work just for the calming up of the issue. They have to, or else just like a collective bargain, they should not bargain with the employees and they should not come up with a point. They have to work for the right. They have to work for the emancipation of working class. They have to work for the social change. So trade unions acts as a means for social change. That's what we said. Trade unions is a means of social change. Social change is nothing but for improving the working conditions of the labor. And the trade unions are seen as labor reaction to exploitation by capital as well as a weapon to bring about a revolutionary social change. What is that? It is seen as a weapon to bring about a revolutionary change in the revolutionary social change. And Marxist theory assumed that survival of, he says that both the employers or employees should be given equal importance. Why? Because the employees without work, they cannot sustain. It is very crucial for them to live. In the similar way, employer without the labors, it is also critical. They cannot they cannot have production without these labors. So the employer should give equally importance to the labor because the survival of employees without work is very crucial as survival of employer without the labors. So Marxists argue that the state intervention via legislation and by creation of industrial tribunals as supporting management interest. The government agencies or the state intervention is for the supporting of the management interest rather than ensuring balance between these capital and labor groups, competing groups. So it is not encourageable the interference of the government. It also believes that all the strikes are political. Whatever the causes, whenever you start a strike, it at the end or at the starting, it leads to a political. It changes to a political scenario. So it believes that all strikes are political. And next Next approach is industrial sociology approach. This approach, according to the approach, this opinion that the core of industrial relations is the nature and the development of conflict. And Margaret argued that conflict is basic because in the industry, the sociology approach says that different industry comprises of different human beings who needs to communicate with individuals because of the difference in their attitude, skills, perception, personality, trends, and interest and likes and dislikes, needs. Definitely, there will be a conflict arises. So this conflict, even this social mobility, even this social mobility can also cause a conflict. Social mobility is nothing but a status in the society, or I can say that it is a movement of individuals, families within the society, in the social strata in a society, upper class, lower class, middle class. These also create the differences. In these classes may also create this conflict. So this is difference in the perception, difference in the attitude, difference in the social mobility. These are all the causes of conflict, industrial conflict. And coming to the next important approach is trusteeship approach. What is this all about? This is given by Mahatma Gandhi, and the idea of trusteeship approach, this trusteeship approach is the industrial relations are emerged from the engagement with its workers throughout his life. And in 1918, okay, there was a general strike had taken up in cotton mills of Ahmedabad in the year of 1918, and it is one of the at the time it has nearly 40,000 workmen are being worked over there. They have started the strike. It is one of the largest production industry at the time, having 40,000 workers, and Gandhi has a significant role in this strike because he has used his philosophy of satyagraha and non-violence, made the total scenario, made the total strike in a different way. Okay, so and Gandhi led this struggle to obtain a fair increase in wages. They have striked for the increase in wages, and this strike is with the non-violence and non-violence. This strike is with non-violence and with the principle of satyagraha. So he says that he said that we have to listen to the other parties, and other parties' interest also has to be taken into account while you are coming to any decision. We have to respect the opinion of the other party even while we are coming to a definition. It is very important both the parties, employer and employee opinion, both the opinions has to be balanced while you are coming to a decision. So for balancing this, he has given arbitration. Arbitration is one of the mechanism for resolving the issues. Arbitration, conciliation, these are the and collective bargaining are the mechanisms that has been proposed by him for resolving the issues in the industries with a harmonious scenario situations. So, thus Gandhiji preferred a harmonious and balanced approach to industrial relations, where one side would never dominate the other side. One side means it can be employer and employee should never dominate the other side. This is the employee side, and the employer. The employer should not dominate the employee, whereas employee never dominates the employee. So, but it could take into account the interests of both the parties while before going to a conclusion or else any decision. It doesn't mean that he is supporting the management. Okay, he is not supporting the management. He is not supporting the unitarists, or completely it is they are not. He is not supporting the Marxist thinking. It is completely different from the both the procedure, either unitarists or Marxists, because he, along with Marx, Gandhi agreed with the ideas of classless and stateless society. He agreed with the argument of Marx for the classless and stateless society. According to Gandhi, wealth could never be privately held. Nobody can hold the health for their own purpose, for their individual purpose. It is for the society. Whatever we have, it is the gift of the nature. So it should be used only for the society, for the betterment of the society, not for the individual benefits. So wealth could always be held by people in trust of the society. Wealth should be always held by the people in trust of the society. And thus, it is necessary for the people to respond to the needs of the society, not use wealth for individual interest alone. That is a concept or the principle behind this. And he, in the Ahmedabad in 1918, he pleaded he was not against strike, but he pleaded the people the strike should be the last weapon of industrial workers. It should be the last weapon. After you have tried for all the peaceful and constitutional methods like negotiations, conciliation, and arbitration, if nothing works, then only you can go for the last weapon, which is called as strike. Okay, because we have to resolve the issues with harmony and peacefully, without any violence. The theory of trusteeship is based on the view that all forms of property and human accomplishments are the gifts of nature, and they belong not to anyone but to the society. Thus, trusteeship is totally different from other contemporary labor labor relation systems, and it aimed at achieving economic equality and material advancements of the have-nots in the capitalist society by what is the method? Non-violence means. That is the most important thing. The aim of this is achieving the economic equality and advancement of the have-nots of the employees in the capitalist society with a weapon called non-violence. And he focused on increasing the productivity and believed that gains should be shared with the employees, because without whom this production cannot be happen. So because of that, these employees are very value to the organization. Hence, it is very important to share the gains with the employees. And next, he also emphasized that industrial disputes and conflicts between the parties should be resolved healthily through the arbitration and bilateral negotiation. He has proposed in the 1980 in the Ahmedabad textile cotton mills strike. He has given this agitation. He has given this arbitration and bilateral negotiation as one of the finest method for resolving the issue. And Gandhiji was not against strike. Instead, he has given some of the conditions for favorable conditions for that has to be carried out while doing a strike. That means the first one is, we all know that if you want to go for a strike, if there is only specific grievance, okay, only a specific grievance, we have to go for the strike. After making a trial of all the other mechanisms of resolving the issue, that is in arbitration and conciliation, bilateral negotiation. If it was not resolved, then you can go for that with a specific reason, then only you can go for this strike, which is very important. And the second condition which I've given is should be completed with non-violence while carrying out the strike. There should be complete non-violence. Nobody should harmed. Either the employer or the employee should get harmed. It should be carried out peacefully. Okay, the ones who are not involved in the strike should not be tormented. So the one who is not involving in the strike, who are not interested in doing the strike, should not be tormented. Tormenting is nothing but we should not worry them. We should not stir them. We should not stir up, or else we should not annoying them for not participating in the strike. Leave them. Do not force anybody to participate in the strike. That is the Gandhian approach. Coming to the psychological approach. This psychological approach, the name itself says that, which is based on perception and mindset of the key participants. So while we are talking about industrial theories, industry comprises of two main elements. One is employer and one is employment. And the psychological approach is nothing but the industrial problem is erased due to the perception, difference in the perception of these two participants. And this psychological approach has been tested practically by Mason Harry to understand the behavior, mindset, and perception of these two significant groups. He had made an experiment. How he has done an experiment between these executive and union leaders in a particular situation. He has the person has given a photograph of a ordinary middle-aged person, and he has shown to both the parties, to both the groups, that is union leaders and the managers. Here the union leaders has perceived the person to be a manager, whereas the executive thought that the person would be a union leader. So it shows that the difference in the opinion, and one does not agree with the other person. There is a differences in the opinion. There is a entirely differences in the way of perceiving things. So the general belief of the management representative is entirely different that of a labor representative. Both the labor and the management do not consider each other to be trustworthy. Because of that reason, the conflict arises. And each of these groups consider the other one lacks, they cannot understand others' emotions, and they'll be lagging in the interpersonal attributes. Because of it, the other person thinks that the manager cannot understand the laborers, and the manager feels that these laborers cannot understand whatever you do, how much money you can give, they cannot get satisfied, they cannot understand the emotions of the management. Both will be thinking in a different way. Because of that difference in the opinion, definitely the conflict arises. These contrasting impressions are the result of economic, non-economic factors like values, power, position, personal objectives, educational, societal, and income of the individuals. So, and we are coming to the next most and most important thing is human relations approach. The human relations approach, the name itself saying that this is given by Keith Davis. The name itself, human relations approach, says that we know that the society or the organization comprises of human beings and who are having difference in their behavior, emotions, attitude, mindsets, and personality trends. And if they're all working together to achieve a common goal, because of the differences of the variations in their behavior and emotions, definitely there would be misunderstandings and misperceptions will be there. And he says that, Keith Dewey says that we have to make the people to understand the situations, work situations of the organization. We have to make efforts to unite the workers. The purpose is to meet the social, psychological, and economic objectives by enhancing the overall productivity. It is very important to educate the workers. It is very important to educate the workers. We have to go for different methods that can enhance, that can make the people to understand the work situations, to understand and get familiar with the work situations. So then everything will be fine. So this theory focused on enhancing the level of efficiency, workers' morale, and job satisfaction by applying specific techniques or tools and policies. He'll be using some of the techniques and tools for the employees, increasing the employee efficiency and job satisfaction, and increasing the morale, which is very important. Okay, morale of the employee. If the employee is satisfied with the present job, definitely he'll be working with highest morale and highest productivity and efficiency. So the human relations approach highlighted a technique for enforcing proper control over the work environment by forming small work groups. Small work groups, like we can say, for example, quality groups, and at the same time they can same time eliminating the hurdles of sound labor management relations. These are all the approaches which are important and for your net also, UGC net. Thank you for listening.